So I'm doing this little blackout thing really quick. I just feel like I need to get this message out to the public. Um, it's about a dream I had. I want to say about 3 nights ago. Okay, so in the dream, for some reason, there was an apocalyptic event taking place where everyone was being infected biologically by like zombified cells or something. Like people were turning into literal zombies. And I remember it was like an epidemic. And then I remember people trying to threaten me to like infect me and stuff, right? And for whatever reason in the dream I was completely like aware that they were trying to stick me with the virus or whatever it was, but I was not exactly threatened or in a like fearful way. Like I wasn't fearful like to want to get away or anything. I was more like, oh, you're threatening me now. Now I'm expecting something to come in and retaliate against you for threatening me. Basically, what was going on in my dream. Like, I knew I have presences that are like protecting me, that are not human, and I knew that these specific individuals, I will not name who, but it was two different individuals. One of them is uh, familiar to everyone in my audience, and she was obviously like all for it, all for the infection, all for like the dark, disgusting things that were going on in the world. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, oh, you're threatening me with this virus, and I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for my contact to come in because I knew that they would be assassinated. These two that were threatening, one of them particularly would be assassinated. Anyways, this happened in my dream, and then I woke up for a little bit, and then I fell back asleep. And then in this dream, it was like an extension of the same dream. It was really interesting. And the last few nights, I've been having dreams like that where I would pick off or pick up where I was in the previous dream. And I've never had that happen before. It's only been, this is like the first time this has ever happened to me. Um, but I want to point out that in the second dream, it was same zombie apocalypse. I think somebody was talking to me sublimely while I was asleep. I was a lot of time I get information via clairaudiently or telepathically from these beings that I can commune with. And they were telling me it was almost like an informant was disguised or not showing themselves, but they were telling me or showing me the what was going on in the world, in the story, in the dream. And I remember seeing like there was these two kids. I want to say they're about maybe preteens to like age 16. They were not very old. They were high schoolers. These two preteens apparently went to the Antarctic or went to a mountain that was just completely ice. And I think they went on like a trip or something and they recovered dinosaur specimens illegally. Okay? Stuff that was frozen deep in the, or not deep in the ice, but it had been unearthed, but it was in the ice and they managed to bring it home. And I remember seeing that this one of the kids, um, after the dinosaur thawed out the specimen, it reanimated, and then it bit uh, the one kid, the one teen, and then the other teen witnessed him getting bit, and then it kind of like down spiraled Like that teen that got bit got infected. And then I remember the teen turned into basically a zombie. Like the genetic infection got to his brain, and then his eyes were turning white, and he just completely was like dead. Inherently alive, technically, but the brain was being hijacked by this particular virus. And I remember this in this dream. The other teen was too scared to get the police involved, to get anyone involved. And I remember it started a whole epidemic. And then some military personnel, or was a female that was questioning the one teen whose friend ended up dying after being infected, after becoming zombified and infecting others, and then dying. The other kid was questioned by this military personnel, and then the kid was, it's almost like, and it was weird, it's like it fast forward and it's like some epidemic broke out, and then the teen died, and then the other teen was obviously, and he was detained, and then he was questioned, and then for some reason, for the general public, it was on display. Like they had the specimen on display, they had something on display, and then they had the T-shirt where the bite to the teen took place was on display. And then I remember the military personnel was attempting to get answers out of this kid. And I remember feeling like this is something that is technically happening in the world somewhere. Like, I remember getting this feeling like this is part of what's about to happen. Like there's some kind of epidemic or some kind of massive problem that's about to break out. And I think somebody is aware of this biological reanimated cells that are in dinosaur specimens. I remember seeing in the dream that they were also considering the fact that this specific viral infection killed and wiped out a lot of dinosaurs. And for the bones to be in the ice, like in these areas where there's just straight, it's just the Antarctic is frozen, you know? Like for them to uncover bones with infected cells of this supposed zombie virus, and it to be like thawed out and reanimated, like it sounds real, like to me. And I think that there's something going on with that, with some of these foreign countries. I think there's some foreign investors or people that are getting their hands on specimens that have been frozen for millions of years under the ice and are thawing out specimens and are reanimating life forms and viruses or genetic material. I think this is the weapon that they're going to use, because I'm also aware, because I have military family. I have brothers that were in the military, or they served in the U.S. military or the Air Force. Like, for example, my eldest brother, Randy, he served as a senior airman for the Air Force. And then my second eldest brother, Gary, he was in the Marines. My brothers are like bulkers, okay? Like they're, like, especially Gary. Gary's very interested in bodybuilding. But yeah, he actually got, I don't want to put it out there, but anyways, he got in trouble for something, for something he was doing with his bodybuilding. But anyways, I have military family, and I'm aware that there is certain training and processes that new recruits go through. Some of that has been kind of like shared out to the public. some individuals that are working for the army or enlisted in the army have shared that they are being trained, like authentically trained, and um, going through like demos for apocalyptic events for a zombie apocalypse. Okay, they're being trained on what to do when something like an epidemic like this breaks out, and they're being trained how to respond, how to act, how to conduct themselves, like all that. I know that for a fact because I have brothers that served, and they also tell me. My eldest brother, Randy, and I talked about a lot of things, and he's like, some of the things you talk about, Amy, he says, my colleagues and I discuss. You know, this is stuff that is highly confidential, highly, like, it's top secret. And I said, well, I told him that I'm technically a remote viewer because I've been able to spy on underground bases, and I obviously know how to interact with extraterrestrials, and I've been able to obtain information through my contacts, and there's a whole thing that's gone with me. I've been, for the last 10-15 years, I've been involved with a lot of interesting situations and encounters, experiences. But anyways, I'm more than well aware of what's going on with the world politics, and I'm well aware of the, maybe not the politics, but the game that they're playing. The world governments and the war schemes and all that stuff. I know I've been stalked by the CIA. I've also been stalked by, I've had 2 instances where I saw 2 men in black. Well, there was one, and then there was another instance where I saw one. And they saw me. They know where I worked. They know who I was. They know exactly who I am. I actually have like pictures of when I was in Sam Houston, Texas, where I was being stalked by unmarked vehicles and stuff because of my contact with the Anunnaki. And I have a person that was living with me who also bore witness to all the stuff that was going on at the time. But anyways, like, I've been knowing about the end game stuff that's coming, and I'm also aware, based off of the military and the connections I have, okay, of what's actually going on behind those doors, those closed doors. Everyone's not talking about it on, you're not going to hear it on the news, okay? It's not something that's just going to be, like, televised and, like, here's the warning. Like, a lot of that's covered up. A lot of it's hidden on purpose. But, yeah, I just wanted to share that dream because I think that scientists are reanimating life forms and playing with genetic materials that are biologically a risk somewhere in this planet right now. And I think one of those particular infections is going to be used as a bioweapon. And I think that these zombie apocalypse trainees and those people are talking about the stuff that's being, like, it's prominent in their regiments right now. Like, they're being trained for stuff that would be technically fanciful if it wasn't real, right? Like, why would the army train new recruits for a zombie apocalypse? Why would they put them in mock demos or scenarios to train them for this if it's not real? So I just want to point that out. Like, whatever's going on in Hollywood, y'all know about the corruption in Hollywood. Y'all know about these secret societies, these groups. I call them extremists because that's what they are. They have extremism in their beliefs. and they have developed cults and gangs. They're basically no different than gangs and groups of criminals. Um, that is, they exploit and they use the fear of their beliefs, their dogmas to brainwash and influence others. All that's it's a line in extremism. So I mean, Christians do extremism things. Okay, so they're no different than extremist Christians, extremists and other belief, you know, systems. But I am well aware of who's actually running those games in Hollywood. Okay, those groups are not necessarily secret. There are beings that live here on this planet, and then there are those that are returning to this planet. And those that are returning to this planet had a hand in play in genetically engineering humans as we are, and unfortunately, that makes us product. That makes us real estate owned products. Okay, these beings that are coming back are not happy with the world powers and these secret societies. Okay, they are going to come back and usurp the situation because this is a planet that belongs to them. It's real estate. It's everything that lives here has been put here deliberately. Okay, nothing has been by accident, and they're angry because there's some I'm gonna call them there's two separate factions. There's the factions that are in active rebellion against their own kinds and that are running these systems in Hollywood through individual human proxies, and then there are the ones that actually own this planet and all of its inhabitants and own the beings that are playing with their proxies in these societies. Okay? So, in other words, there's a bigger fish on the food chain that is coming back. And they only left because they got what they needed from the planet. They actually genetically engineered humans for a particular process, and we're reaching a genetic phase where they need to tweak things. And unfortunately, these systems and societies are going to systematically have problems. And I mean, I'm not saying that I'm sympathizing, because these are criminals. These are organized criminals. And while people are distracted by the cults in these industries and their displays and their distractions and their brainwash, people don't know that there is something else to be feared. Not necessarily to be feared, but to be acknowledged that there is something else that actually holds precedence over everything that is here on this planet. And unfortunately, these extremist groups aren't willing to be transparent with their followers, their people that they recruit into their cults. These people are not going to have a good transition. Human proxies are nothing but puppets. So everyone that you could possibly think of that is a big name in the game in these societies, these secret societies, is most likely simply a proxy. And that is it. The power that they have is an illusion, and it is being beaten to everyone's head through systematic subliminal programming, okay, through the music industry, the film industry, all that. Everyone's being put under hypnosis. The spell of the witches in Hollywood are nothing more than people that are technically psychologically brainwashing everybody. Psychological manipulation. It's not necessarily witchcraft. But I just want to point it out that we have some stuff going on in the industries, and it will most likely be a more prominent scope of reality when these beings return. People will probably be caught off guard, not fully understanding what's going on. They won't understand because they've been brainwashed. Some of those things aren't being spoken. They're not being talked about. The vow of silence. Okay, y'all know, y'all are catching up with me on this, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. These people are aware of the presence that are coming back, and they are busy preparing. They're buying their underground bunkers. They're buying land. They're buying assets. They're preparing to try and be in a survival scenario if it comes down to it. They're planning to genetically freeze their specimens in the Antarctic. Their genetic material. Some of these people are very wealthy, and they're willing to freeze their genes or future versions of themselves so that they can be here when the collapse takes place. There's a reason why these billionaires are buying underground bunkers. There's a reason why the military personnel is having trouble containing the anomalous visits to the planet. They're not able to control when they come and go, or who sees what. And these industries are being plucked. The strings are being pulled underneath them, and they're not even aware that these same beings that have power over this planet or authority over this domain of Earth, okay, are deliberately plucking certain proxies in the industries. When I say plucking, I mean deliberately exposing, deliberately bringing down. So it's not something you can fight. It's not something you can work around. You cannot buy your way out. You can't sell your soul and then survive. It's not going to work. We have the reality, and then we have the fantasy that some are living in, okay, in these industries. The reality is these beings that are coming back own this planet and all of its inhabitants, including the ones that are running or controlling the groups of proxies in the industries, these secret societies. So while we may have some proxy humans that are acting like cult leaders, those are inherently puppets by a separate faction that's an active rebellion against their own kind. So just want to explain that to people. The industries and the secret societies are not what you should be scared of. There's a lot of bigger fish in the sea. But anyways, I just wanted to point out that I had this dream, and I'm aware of what's going on with the world news and stuff, and the war games that are going on in media between Israel and the US, China, and Russia, and these world powers. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on right now there's a lot of distraction as well going on to distract you from what's taking place. I just wanted to pop in and point out to people that I'm getting intuition, I'm getting some insight around the weapon that a certain world power has, and I think it may be the genetic. I think it's the zombie genetic material infection that's being used and harnessed as a biological weapon. I think that's what they're planning on doing. Anyways, I was told this via my astrals and my dreams. Sublimally was talked to through my dream and explained to what is happening within these top secret cabinets. Okay, there's the Pentagon has got some news. They've got some insight as well, and I'm sorry, but yeah, I happen to be a remote viewer. So if I want to, I can spy on the fucking government. I've done it before. I can tell you exactly what's going on, what they're scared of, what the security issue is. Right now, I could do all of that and I can make it public, but I'm not doing that right now. Maybe if it's important enough for me, and maybe if I get that clearance and okay from my contacts to do that, then I will. But at this point, I'm reserving information, and there's a lot of things I am aware of that I'm not speaking about. But anyways, I just wanted to share that dream, at least document it. If I decide to make this public, I'm probably going to make it public and then maybe not make it public for a time. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for listening.